This video is going to go over specifically the use of FireWire with PowerSDR for the Flex-3000 or Flex-5000 radios. FireWire is no longer supported by Microsoft, which the problem with that is that when Microsoft makes changes to the operating system, they don't check it against FireWire to make sure that it doesn't break something. So inevitably it breaks something. Now my machine FireWire is working fine, but there are a lot of machines, new or old. It's kind of random. That are having trouble with FireWire crashing your machine. Um, so I'm just going to kind of go over my system. I've changed my motherboard a couple times where I've transferred the hard drive from the old motherboard to a new motherboard, and same FireWire card even, but just simply going from Windows 10 upgrading to Windows 11, and then I had a lightning strike that took out the motherboard. Got another motherboard. That one quit on me a couple years later. I got another, and FireWire's always worked. Always worked for me. But so if you open up Device Manager, you'll see the IEEE 1394. That's FireWire, and in my case, I've got a Texas Instruments card, and it's plugged into a PCIexpress 1X slot, which is the tiniest PCIe slot that there is. But you could plug that same card into a 16 slot if you want. It's whatever you got. Uh, and I'm going to go over possibly changing this to a legacy driver, which is basically the Windows 7 driver. Windows 7 FireWire was fairly stable. Most of the problems were worked out, and then, like I said, subsequently Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows 11, more security features were added. They took some features of FireWire and for security reasons, and turn them off or block them. Certain things got blocked, so I'm just going to go over a few things. Now, I normally don't have to block anything on my computer, but one thing is like you might want to try uh, Windows Security. Right click and um, just go to Manage Settings and turn off real time. See if that has any effect. I'm going to go over the reason in a moment why I do that. I've also talked on my website about memory integrity, turning that feature off. But if you go to my website and you go to the FireWire link on the side, open up this panel, you'll see the legacy driver download here. When you install that, it's going to create a file. Basically in program files, it's going to create a folder here. If I go back up one, you can see. So for program files x86, you're going to get this folder, and then if you're running Windows 11, you have to. It's 64-bit only, so you click on that driver. But this is where it's located. But you don't go here. I'm just showing you where that install actually puts the files. It doesn't install anything. It just puts files somewhere. Now, when you go to Device Manager, if you're having trouble, you can try. It doesn't always work. Sometimes they'll even crash your system when you try to change this to legacy. But you click on here, and the driver, you'll see it's a Microsoft 2006 driver. It's for the Texas Instruments. I can go to Update Driver, browse my computer, and then let me pick and have disk. Now it's showing the legacy, but you could say have disk, and then I can browse, and then I can go to actually look that up. Program files, compliant, 6, say, so now there's the file we just did. So I click on that, there's the legacy, and I hit next, and then I successfully installed. So now when I go back, it's showing legacy for the 1394. Now you can go and you could say show hidden devices, and it's only showing the one. This legacy. Now, I've downloaded a program called Hardware Info 64. It's a free program. so you can kind of see some data. Now I plugged it into a particular PCIexpress slot in my motherboard, but basically this program shows you things like this. I've got an Asus Prime AMD B550 Plus motherboard. It's a GeForce GTX 650 video card and an AMD Ryzen 7 CPU. This part's not really that important. What's important over here is to look at the bus where I plugged in. Now, this is all the PCIe ports on your computer, which basically everything is connected to a PCI somewhere in your computer. Every single system is run over PCI, so I can expand each one. Here's my hard drive. My NVMe hard drive is right here. Click on the next one, and it's just breaking it down. Here's a USB-C controller. There's a SATA controller, which I don't use because I'm using NVMe. So basically everything down below is sharing this next PCIexpress times 8 bus. And so there's more parts to it, and I keep going further and further. These are all sharing this next times 4 bus. I keep expanding on it. Here's a USB 3.1 controller, and expand this one. Here's a Realtek PCI 3.0 NVMe. Now this NVMe, that's I've got a backup hard drive plugged into there. I don't really use it. It's just a backup hard drive. And another express port. Now I know I've got mine plugged into the PCIe EX1_1. So when I expand it, there's the Texas Instruments, and that's showing the chip that it's using for that board. Because sometimes I kind of wonder if some of these FireWire cards that we're buying are made with either the board design itself is poor or the chip itself may be counterfeit. I have run across counterfeit chips, not for FireWire. I have no idea, but I mean in other cases for other CPUs, I've run across counterfeit chips in the past. But this here's the chip that I'm using. You can keep expanding it, and basically it's the 1394B, and it's connected to the Flex. So it's showing you the whole series of where it's going, and then over here showing you what's going on. See, in this case, I'm using the legacy driver from 2013. The IRQ is 28. I've made sure that I'm not conflicting with any other IRQs, no video card IRQs, things like that. So now the one thing you can do, so I'm going to launch, well, what I'll do is I'll launch something called legacy or latency monitor. So now this is normally just for when PowerSDR freezes, when the PAN adapter freezes, there's a thing called DPC latency. It's how well your computer can run in real time. People use it when they're doing, let's say, audio processing, and they're hearing clicks in their audio or whatever. You check for any kind of latency. And I start it, and it's going to start showing what's consuming the highest amount. And you saw for a second it was the 1394, but then it quickly moved over to the NVIDIA. So the driver for the NVIDIA is clearly the biggest hog for the real-time background processes. But I can click over to processes. Now this is what is interesting, because the hard page faults, that's where the crashes occur. So I can click and I can see what's actually generating hard page faults. And that's where Windows Defender comes in, why I turned it off, because typically you'll see if Windows Defender is on, you'll see that at the top of the list of hard page faults. And I don't know if that occasionally goes a little bonkers and causes problems or not, but I disabled it just to avoid it. Now I'm going to launch PowerSDR, and every once in a while this is going to reset, and you have to click on hard page faults again twice to get it to show the worst offenders at the top of the list. Alright, so PowerSDR is up and running. Here's PowerSDR now. Generated a couple hard page faults. So I'll turn it on. So you can kind of keep an eye on what's generating the most hard page faults. Some people reported when they stop PowerSDR is when the crash occurs. Sometimes it's just simply clicking a button will cause it to crash, but I'm starting it and stopping it, no problem. Right now PowerSDR is at the top of the list, but if I were to turn the Windows Defender back on, it probably would be at the top of the list. So you can even look at the driver for the like the ISR. This is the service request, interrupt service request count. So you could clearly see the FireWire, because I'm running it at 192 kilohertz sample rate. Let me open up setup for PowerSDR audio primary. It's 192K sample rate. So I mean, you basically got all that data flowing over FireWire continuously, and so obviously this number is going to be the highest because there's a large flow of data back and forth constantly. Whether you're running, like even when I hit stop, it's still going to be all that data flowing back and forth. And restart it, and it's just you're seeing all that data. And then I go back to main, and I can see what's the highest right now. And it's still NVIDIA is the one that's causing it, but it's saying it's suitable for handling real-time audio, no problem. And I can go back to hard page faults, and I'm not getting that many. So now I'll reactivate my real-time Windows Defender, and that's what this is. See, immediately 59 hard page faults, 60. That's what this is, the MSMPENG. That's the Windows Defender. So you notice it jumped right to the top of the list. So I always kind of wonder if that has a problem. But so again, I'm running this in Legacy. There's not much else you can do. There's other things like to just make sure power options and control panel, I've got it under high performance. But I've used it even in balance. It hasn't been a problem. I run, in general, I run the process party real time. So I mean, and I've got the PFN crash delay down to 0 right now on this. I'm not even putting anything on there, and I've got no problems. But I do know, yeah, some people, even with Legacy, it doesn't help. I'm not sure, but you probably want to turn off any kind of CPU throttling, anything that's meant for power saving, things like that, anything that might turn off the PCIexpress bus. You might want to check into that. Usually high performance and the power options will bypass all that, so that that's what that's for, so it won't do any power saving features, but you can always check in the BIOS and make sure. So yeah, hard page faults is still the Defender, and the NVIDIA is still the worst case offender for latency, so disable that. But trying to think if there's anything else. If you still have problems, you can try another. Some people report that the VIA instead of Texas Instruments is better for them. In my case, the TI is the best, but I've tried other ones, and I've tried on other computers. Yes, sometimes some older FireWire cards don't work too well, but one thing I might try if it's if you got a brand new Windows 11 installation and you've tried a couple cards, the only thing I could think of would be to get a second hard drive as a test. Maybe plug that into your computer, second hard drive, and install, let's say, Windows 10. Get everything up and running. See if it runs on Windows 10, and then if it does, you can try to do an upgrade to Windows 11 in-place upgrade and see if that carries over like it did for me, where it doesn't give you any troubles. Because I do know Windows 11, they've steadily added more security features, um, more things to break. When they add more security, and I don't know if that's what's causing more of this, but some people reported just using legacy works for them. I just don't know why some combinations of motherboard and FireWire card work and some don't. That's why I kind of suspect maybe there are some cards out there, FireWire cards, the newer ones, that might have counterfeit chips or just poor poor boards. That the board itself is bad. I mean, because some people have used that same TI chip that I've used, and they can't get it to work. So it's even though that chip I think is still in production. So I don't quite understand it. Other than I know it's mostly the fact that Microsoft doesn't simply they don't support FireWire, so they don't check whenever they make security updates. They don't check to make sure that they didn't break something. But that's about it.